Good morning, everyone. It's Thursday as we gear up for tonight's meeting with Braga in the Europa League with Practical CBT. Did you know that they offer online tools for better mental well-being? I'm certainly feeling reinvigorated, everyone. We've got a big Europa League game this evening, a pretty large crowd expected at Celtic Park, and we're going to have noise right from the beginning of the game. And I'm not just talking about Stevie moaning. We've got a lot to get through. Do you like that one? Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks for spending a little bit of your Thursday watching or listening to me. Maybe you are watching on YouTube. Hello, if that's the case. Maybe you're listening to me while you go about your business today. Maybe you're even on the way to Celtic Park listening to me right now. Very jealous. I think tonight's going to be a good one. Yeah, we've got a few things to discuss. First of all, as I've kind of tended to in recent shows, just starting with the off-the-pitch stuff and the latest on the planned 29-minute silent protest from the Celtic Fans Collective. So we had a big development here late last night, just before 9:30, I think, and a statement released from the Fans Collective. I'll just read it out. It reads, "This evening, Celtic fan organisations received an invitation from Celtic FC to attend a meeting with the club on Monday the 6th of October to discuss ongoing concerns about the running of the club. In conjunction with the Celtic Fans Collective, supporter organisations have accepted this invitation. Celtic FC's representatives will include Michael Nicholson and Chris Mackay. We welcome the club's decision to meet and engage directly on the issues raised. However, we remain under no illusions about the scale of change still required at board level. As a result of this development, the planned continuation of the 3-match silence has been postponed in good faith in the hope and expectation that supporters will now receive full and honest communication from the club. We thank every supporter who has stood behind this campaign and helped bring the Celtic board to the table. Without this unity, it would not have been possible. It highlights the strength and influence of a united Celtic support. The Celtic Fans Collective will continue its campaign irrespective of the outcome of this meeting, with the clear aim of securing meaningful positive change for the betterment of Celtic Football Club and its supporters." So Celtic have proposed a meeting which the various different kind of fan groups that were invited have unanimously decided to attend. I think it's kind of interesting that in the email, I guess, that was sent out from Celtic, they didn't actually reference the Fans Collective at all. They didn't acknowledge it, basically, which I did think was interesting. But, it's still a positive step. Basically, there's going to be a meeting on Monday evening taking place between Celtic, including Michael Nicholson, Chris Mackay, and other representatives from the club, and Celtic fan organisations. If you're wondering which fan organisations are invited here, we're talking the Affiliation of Registered CSCs, Association of Irish CSCs, Boys Celtic, Celtic Disabled Supporters Association, CSCs from the North of Ireland, which is an organisation, the Celtic Trust, and the Green Brigade. And each of these organisations are permitted to send up to 2 people. And I think for lots of us who obviously aren't going to be at this meeting, which is the vast majority of the Celtic support, very much hoping that the contents of this meeting will be shared, and I'm pretty sure they will be. Not by Celtic officially, I wouldn't think, but certainly by those who are involved in the meeting. So we'll see how that goes, what comes of it. I don't think anything's going to be solved on Monday, but hopefully some sort of dialogue here can be viewed as a positive, and we can move forward and not have this situation we've got at the moment, which is totally the board's doing. This isn't the support that have caused this, but hopefully, for the betterment of the team, this can start to progress in a positive direction, because I think everyone wants that. And yeah, I've kind of spoken a little bit about personally not being a big fan of the silent protest that happened against Hibs at the weekend. It was scheduled to happen tonight for 29 minutes, and Motherwell, I think, for 32 minutes on Sunday. You can't argue, though, with the results of that. That silent protest has clearly made Celtic comfortable enough to arrange a meeting there. So the protest has worked in that regard. And there's actually something sent out yesterday from Celtic Fans Collective, just to kind of update on where they're at with things. And I think, paraphrasing, they basically agreed that for future protests that they would probably not go down the silent route again, that it just maybe worked best at this point with the 3-game package thing. So it seems like we'll probably get kind of more inclusive protests in future. And they even spoke about a day of action for a home game, possibly against Kilmarnock, coming up that's near the AGM. So that's one to look out for as well. But I think there'd been a bit of chat about from people saying, they should scrap this silent protest thing. Good on them for sticking to that, because if they had scrapped it, I think there's a fair chance they wouldn't have had this meeting from Celtic. Obviously can't say that for certain, but I certainly get the impression that the protest is one of the main reasons for this dialogue eventually opening up with Celtic. And for me, most importantly, the 3-match silent protest is over or postponed, as the collective say, and everyone can get properly behind the team right from the kick-off tonight in what is a pretty big European game that Celtic have to be looking to win. So maybe, just maybe, finally a bit of good news. Now, that development last night did make a lot of the press conferences yesterday with Brendan Rodgers and Kasper Schmeichel feel pretty obsolete. They were asked a lot about the silence for the first half an hour of tonight's game and how that would affect Celtic, how it would affect Braga, just general questions about that. That obviously isn't going to happen now. But Brendan Rodgers at the time did give his kind of overall thoughts on this. He was quoted as saying, "Hopefully both parties can sit down and respect the differences and find a solution so that we can all pull together again, because that's what's always key for Celtic." Just in terms of the football and other things Brendan Rodgers covered yesterday at his press conference, I think he's looking forward to seeing the team play tonight and looking forward to seeing if we can build on what was a pretty decent draw in Belgrade last week. Obviously pretty complimentary of Braga, knows it's going to be a challenge, says they'll be out to win the game tonight, and did that wee smirk as if in Scotland the opposition aren't always out to win, which I think even just based on Saturday with Hibs is clearly the case. So I think even though it's not the Champions League, it's the Europa League, he's still very much looking forward to seeing Celtic play at this level of football. My favourite quote from him in the press conference was him saying, "Colby Donovan is frightened about nothing," which I thought was a cracking line. He was also asked about Hayato Inamura and Shin Yamada. He says both of those guys are training hard and well, says that there's players in front of them. Very complimentary, I think, of Inamura and Yamada's attitude, but didn't necessarily say that opportunities are going to be coming for those guys. So I'm in a more positive mood today, so we don't really need to go into the disaster or disasters we've had with some of our summer signings. I mean, Simpson Pusey's another one, but these are guys that I'm questioning whether we're going to see them play another minute or any minute as far as JSP is concerned this season. But we don't need to do that today. Positive thoughts. He was also asked about Paulo Bernardo by a Portuguese journalist, obviously a talking point, I guess, in Portugal. He talked up Bernardo, says he expects him to play a part tonight, which, I don't know, is interesting, I guess, because Bernardo hasn't always been getting off the bench this season. Brendan Rodgers spoke about Bernardo having a tough time with injuries last season and mentioned that he's now fully up to fitness and fighting for his place. So I wonder if that's maybe part of why we've not seen as much of Bernardo. Maybe he has had various niggles. Maybe he's just been struggling to get up to proper level. I think he's come off the bench in 2 of our last 3 games. If he comes off the bench tonight, that's 3 out of 4. So maybe he's gradually, going to become a bigger player for us. I definitely think with the state that midfield's in at the moment, Bernardo should be getting more of a look in and should be starting matches. I know there's always the age-old tendency to talk up the player who you don't see as much, And, I think as fans we're always guilty of that, like Arnie Engels getting talked up and then he actually gets an opportunity and he looks no better than Hatate and Nygren and McGregor, maybe even worse than those three. However, I do think, Paulo Bernardo should be getting more of an opportunity. I just think when you're looking to change that midfield and give us something new, he would be the kind of player who could do that. So hopefully we get to see him this evening. Just an injury update from the manager. So as we covered yesterday, Austin Trusty is back in training. Rayo Hatate is back in training after missing the game at the weekend. And an update on Alistair Johnston as well. Brendan Rodgers says Ali Johnston will rejoin training probably the week leading into the Dundee game. The Dundee game is the first one back after the international break. So I'm not saying Johnson's going to be coming right back in and starting. And given that Colby Donovan's doing quite well, I don't think there's actually an urgent need to have Johnson right back in and starting for that Dundee game. But it's definitely positive news, the fact that, we play obviously tonight, Motherwell, then we're into the international break. And by the time we come back from the international break, Alistair Johnston could be pretty much good to go. It's going to be great to have him back. Right, predicted 11 for tonight. I should just clarify, this is the team that I think Brendan Rodgers will go with, not necessarily the team that I would pick if I was Celtic manager. Think the defence is relatively nailed on. Kasper Schmeichel clearly will be the goalkeeper. Back four, same as last week in Belgrade. Colby Donovan right back, Kieran Tierney left back, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Liam Scales in the centre. Not particularly worried about the defence. I know that last comment might just age horrendously, but I do think they're pretty solid at the moment. I am worried about the midfield, and I do think we'll probably see the kind of usual three in midfield: McGregor, Nygren, Hatate. Obviously question marks over whether Hatate's ready to start. We didn't really find out too much about his injury. If it's not Hatate, is it McCowan? Is it Engels? Probably Engels. Yeah, that midfield has to show us something because it's just not really worked so far this season. And then a front three that I think makes me kind of feel all right about things. Sebastian Tenecti on the left, Dijsselmeijder on the right, where he started against Hibs and did all right. And Kelechi Iheanacho up front. And I think Iheanacho's got a bit of quality that we can hopefully hang our hat on even at Europa League level. We saw that last week in Belgrade. Wouldn't it be amazing if he could notch another goal and just kind of give us more reasons to feel excited about Celtic? Like, kind of feel like that's what we're looking for as a support at the moment. And Tenecti is clearly one. You could argue Sirachi's been a bit of one, and Iheanacho has been so far. But if these guys can just keep delivering and give us more wee moments and more good performances, then I just think they can maybe bring the rest of the team with them. Colby Donovan, obviously, another one who's given us that in recent weeks. Tonight would actually be his first ever start at Celtic Park if he manages it. His 3 starts so far have all come on the road. Now, Braga, in terms of them, they're without starting midfielder Gabriel Mascardo, who's on loan from Paris Saint-Germain. He has physical fatigue, apparently. Paulo Oliveira and Mario Dorgelis are also unavailable due to injury. Always hard to predict an opposition side's team without knowing absolutely everything about them. Brendan Rodgers certainly expects a 3-4-3 from Braga tonight. As I covered yesterday, their lineup against Feyenoord last week to me looked more like a 3-5-2, but I'm going to trust Brendan Rodgers' tactical eye over mine. And the defence seems pretty nailed on. They do play with a back three. Gustav Lagerbielke's part of that. He should play on the right of the back three alongside Niakite and Ari Mbia. Goalkeeper is Hornacek. The two fullbacks, so Gomez on the right, Lelo on the left, are kind of their key players. They really bomb forward when Braga are in possession. They really get back and make it like a flat back five when Braga are defending. So I do think if those two are bombing on, finding a way to isolate their central defenders and moving the ball quickly and isolating their central defenders and running at them, I think, is a key part of tonight. We need to see quick football from Celtic, because if we're really ponderous and slow and allow Braga to get their 5 in and their midfielders in front of them, I do think they're going to be pretty hard to break down, but they will also leave some gaps. Other players to talk about, I mean, João Moutinho is 39 years old, but still oozes class. He's someone we'll need to watch. Amin El Ouzani up front is a physical presence. Think someone like Alfredo Morelos, who we'll have to keep an eye on. And their captain, Ricardo Horta, is a classy player who'll look to create things for them. He's also the wrong side of 30, but has been with Braga for nearly a decade. Just a couple of other wee things before I head off. Interesting to hear Kasper Schmeichel yesterday mention the fact that Brendan Rodgers has brought up Celtic's run to Seville in season 02-03 since our exit to Kairat. Now, this wasn't actually in the press conference, but I got these quotes on the Celtic Way website. Schmeichel says, "There's obviously been disappointment, and we're all disappointed in not making the Champions League. But when you look at successful seasons, getting to the UEFA Cup final back then, that would have been one of the most successful seasons. So if we were able to go deep into this competition, then you're always wanting to win trophies. You're always wanting to get to those stages with a club like this. We hope that we can get into the competition and give the fans another night like that." So yeah, maybe not totally surprising that Brendan Rodgers has used that Seville example with the players since the exit to Kairat, because I think as supporters you always think that, given that we went out to Basel in 02-03 and I wasn't following Celtic at that point, but I'm guessing there was some sort of similarities maybe in terms of the feeling without a lot of the stuff we've had this year. But I guess a lot of people would probably be really frustrated we were out of the Champions League and maybe turning their nose up ever so slightly at the UEFA Cup at that point. And obviously we gained momentum after momentum, if you can do that, and went through the rounds, and eventually that turned into one of the best Celtic seasons ever following the team, and we didn't even win a trophy. Now obviously that Celtic team's a whole lot better than this current one, but I think it does just show that if you can get a few wins together, then, you know, attention can really turn to the Europa League and people can get really into the Europa League. And I think we've got an opportunity, after drawing in Belgrade last week, go and win tonight, and then you've got your next games at home as well to Sturm Graz. I know we're slightly getting ahead of ourselves, but if you win that as well, you're in 7 points after 3 games. And already I think people would really start to get into the Europa League. If they aren't already. I mean, if we turn to ticket sales for tonight, pretty impressive ticket sales. The Celtic e-ticketing website coming up now. And yeah, when you first glance at that, very much looks like there's a lot of tickets for sale. But if you actually kind of zoom in, ideally not to the pitch, Hamish, basically just single tickets that are available now in both the bottom and the top tier throughout the stadium. Now, I should say that you might notice in the kind of the top tier that I think like the top, it's probably about 8 or 9 rows there. It goes down a little bit as you get into the end stand. But certainly it seems like there's no tickets available in the top number of rows in the stadium, which probably suggests that tickets aren't being sold in those areas, maybe other than season ticket holders who have got the match package. So I don't think the stadium is going to be like entirely full, but I think it will feel pretty full. And yeah, I reckon we might be looking at like possibly as high as 45,000 tonight, which I think, given like everything that's going on at the club, and obviously the kick-off time as well, which is quite an unusual thing. I know we've had a few in recent years that have been early kick-off times. I think we had Udinese and Atletico Madrid maybe in that Sion season. But I think, and obviously Ferencváros a couple of years ago under Ange, which was like a 3 p.m. kick-off. But yeah, I think that would be a really good crowd if we can get that together. And I think to be honest, I think it would show the value that the Celtic support place in the Europa League, even though it's not the Champions League. And a lot of the time we kind of turn our nose up even at the Europa League and we don't really want to be in it. I think the reality is that it's still a great competition, and Braga tonight are stronger opposition than we're going to face domestically all season. So it's a proper game tonight, and yeah, I'm delighted because I did have this down potentially as a game where we might get 25,000 a few weeks ago, just considering the kick-off time and all of the stuff that was going on at the club. So the team's certainly getting the backing, and hopefully they can deliver on that tonight. And just two non-match related things to cover before I head off. B-team forward Samuel Isiguzo has signed a new contract until the summer of 2028. He's actually the captain of the B-team now. And also Seville McArdle has joined Partick Thistle on a season-long loan deal. There was obviously real excitement about McArdle when he broke into the Celtic first team right at the end of last season. I think it was like 20 minutes at Pittodrie when someone compared him to like Lionel Messi or Xavi or something like that. And I think maybe a lot of us were expecting him to play a bit more of a part this season. He's clearly very young and isn't quite ready to play semi-regularly for the Celtic first team. So good to see him going out to a good club with pressure on them and a good level. There's a couple of other B-team players out there as well. I think Josh Clark and Ben McPherson currently on loan at Thistle. So yeah, I think McArdle's going to be one we're going to keep a bit of an eye on and see how he does at Partick Thistle, and maybe starting next season with a good pre-season under his belt, he can be ready to contribute a bit more for Celtic. But yes, it's mainly about tonight's game. Please, everyone, remember the kick-off time. It is an earlier kick-off. It's a 5:45pm kick-off, Celtic Park time. And yeah, we'll watch it and then we'll discuss it first thing tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it though. Take nothing for granted because it's a European match, but that's, I think, part of the excitement of European matches is there feels like less inevitability about the result. Like I think Celtic are favourites tonight, but no result would massively surprise me. Braga are a good side with good experience in this competition. However, I do think Celtic are going to win tonight. I think it'll be a narrow victory. I'll go 2-1. How about that? And I'll chat to you tomorrow.